The alarm screamed through the corridors of Harmony's Gate, a piercing sound that made Ambassador Kesvara's blood run cold. She had been reviewing trade agreements in her office when the emergency notification flashed across her data pad. Environmental failure. Nursery wing. Critical. Her heart stopped. Her baby was in there. Kesvara burst from her office, her clawed feet scraping against the metal floor as she ran. Other Draknari were already in the hallways, their faces showing the same terror she felt. The nursery wing housed 5 hatchlings, each one representing a different Draknari colony world. They were the future. They were everything. What happened? She demanded as she reached the nursery entrance. A technician, some species she did not recognize in her panic, worked frantically at a control panel. System cascade failure, the technician said without looking up. Environmental controls went offline. Temperature is dropping fast in there. The emergency fire suppression sealed the bulkheads automatically. We cannot override it. Kesvara felt her legs weaken. Draknari were cold-blooded. Their young needed warmth to survive. Without it, their tiny bodies would simply stop working. She knew this. Every parent knew this. It was why they never, ever left hatchlings alone. How long? She whispered. At current rate? 20 minutes before hypothermia sets in. Maybe less. Other parents arrived. Veldar, whose daughter Kree was inside. Sornax, father of little Pax. Mirka and Drentioas, both with hatchlings in the program. They all looked at Kesvara with desperate eyes. She was the ambassador. She was supposed to have answers. Who else is in there? Kesvara asked, forcing herself to think clearly. The human, the technician said. Maintenance Chief Leo Grant. He was doing repairs on the ventilation system when the lockdown happened. A human. Kesvara felt a new wave of fear wash over her. Humans had only joined the Galactic Coalition 8 months ago. They were strange creatures. Warm-blooded, like many species, but unpredictable. They smiled when they were happy but also when they were nervous or lying. They formed bonds quickly but could be fiercely territorial. What would a human do when trapped with alien children? Can we communicate with him? She demanded. The technician nodded and opened a channel. Static filled the air, broken and crackling. Maintenance Chief Grant, this is Control. Please respond. More static. Then a voice, faint and distorted. Control, this is Grant. I'm here. What is your status? The technician asked. The human's voice came in pieces. Sealed in, temperature dropping, the kids. The hatchlings. Kesvara pushed closer to the comm. Are they all right? They're scared, Leo's voice said clearer now. Huddled together in the corner. They're shaking. How long until you can get us out? The technician looked at the rescue team that had just arrived. 45 minutes minimum. We need to cut through the bulkhead. Kesvara heard the human make a sound, something between a sigh and a curse. That's too long. They won't make it. They're already turning gray. Gray. Kesvara's hands trembled. Gray meant the cold was affecting them. Their scales lost color when their body temperature dropped. How did the human know this? What are you going to do? Veldar asked, voicing what they all feared. There was a long pause. They could hear movement through the comm, the sound of something being unzipped. I'm going to keep them warm, Leo said simply. How? Kesvara asked, though she was not sure she wanted to know. Body heat, the human replied. Humans run hot. Warmer than most species on this station. If I can get them close enough. The comm crackled with more static. Grant, be advised, you need to maintain your own core temperature, the technician warned. The ambient temperature in that room is dropping below safe levels for you as well. Yeah, I noticed. Leo's voice had a strange quality to it. Humans called it humor, Kesvara remembered. They joked when they were afraid. But I'm bigger than they are. I'll last longer. Just, get here as fast as you can, okay? We will, Kesvara promised. Please, my son is in there. Sarge. He has a small scar on his left wing where he hurt himself learning to glide. He might be frightened of you. I'll be gentle, the human said softly. I promise. All of you, I promise I'll take care of them. Before Kesvara could respond, the comm filled with harsh static and went dead. Grant? Leo Grant respond. The technician worked the controls frantically. Nothing. The communication relay in that section just failed. We are blind. Kesvara stared at the sealed bulkhead. Behind that wall was her baby. And a human. A species she barely understood. A creature that might save her child or might. She could not finish the thought. The rescue team began setting up their cutting equipment. The high-pitched whine of plasma torches filled the air. 45 minutes, they said. It might as well have been forever. Veldar moved beside her. What do we know about humans? He asked quietly. Truly no. Kesvara searched her memory. Humans were new to the coalition. They had helped fight off a pirate raid 3 months ago. They had shared their agricultural techniques freely. They liked to laugh and tell stories. But they're young? She realized she knew almost nothing about how humans treated children. They are protective of their own young, she said slowly. I have heard this. Very protective. But these are not his young, Sornak said, his voice tight with worry. They are not even his species. Elder Kreshera arrived, moving slowly despite the emergency. She was the oldest Draknari on the station, keeper of their histories. I have studied the human files, she said. Since they arrived, there is something unusual about them. What? All the parents asked at once. They bond, Kreshera said carefully. Not just with their own kind. With animals on their world. With other species. They adopt creatures that are not their children and love them as if they were. It is strange. Irrational even. But it is their nature. Kesvara wanted to believe this. Wanted to trust that this human would see 5 terrified babies and help them, not harm them. But want and certainty were different things. The minutes crawled by. The rescue team worked steadily, but the bulkhead was thick. Built to contain fires and decompressions. Built to be strong. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. Then 30. Temperature in that room has dropped to 4 degrees, the technician reported. That is below the survival threshold for Draknari young. Kesvara made a sound she did not recognize. It came from some deep place of grief. Her baby was dying. Right now, on the other side of this wall, Strix was dying. We need to see inside, she said desperately. Is there any way? The technician thought for a moment, then nodded. We have visual probes. They can fit through small gaps. The cutting has created enough space. It will not give us audio, but we will see. Do it, Kesvara ordered. The technician inserted a thin fiber optic cable through a gap in the damaged bulkhead. A screen flickered to life. Everyone crowded around it. At first, the image was dark and unfocused. Then it adjusted and Kesvara saw the nursery room. It looked cold. She could see frost forming on the walls. And there, against the far wall, was the human. And her world stopped. Leo Grant sat on the floor, his back against the wall. He had removed his jacket. Removed his shirt. His bare chest was exposed to the freezing air. And on that chest, piled together in a small mountain of scales and tails and wings, were all 5 hatchlings. They were wrapped in his jacket and what looked like emergency blankets. His arms cradled them carefully, protectively. His head was tilted down, watching them. They are asleep, Veldar breathed. They are asleep in their scales, they are not gray anymore. It was true. The hatchlings showed the healthy bronze and green colors of proper warmth. They slept peacefully, their small sides rising and falling with breath. One had its tiny claws gripping the human's arm. Another had its head tucked under his chin. But the human, Kesvara could see him shaking. His skin had a terrible blue color around his lips. His whole body trembled with cold, but his arms never wavered. He kept the hatchlings close, kept them warm, even as his own body suffered. He is dying, Kesvara whispered. He is freezing to death to save them. Not if we can help it, the rescue team leader said grimly. Everyone clear the area. We are going to full power on these torches. 15 minutes. That is all we need now. 15 more minutes. Kesvara could not look away from the screen. Could not stop watching this human sacrifice himself for children he did not know. For babies of a species he had barely met. What kind of creature did this? What kind of being looked at another species young and decided they were worth dying for? She did not have an answer. But she knew, watching Leo Grant shiver and shake while 5 hatchlings slept warm and safe against his chest, that humanity had just shown her something she had never seen before. And she prayed to every god she knew that they would reach him in time. The plasma torches screamed against the bulkhead, throwing bright sparks across the corridor. Kesvara stood as close as the rescue team would allow, her eyes fixed on the sealed door that separated her from her son. The screen showing the visual feed had been positioned where all the parents could see it. Nobody looked away. Nobody could. Leo Grant had not moved. He sat in the same position, back against the wall, 5 hatchlings bundled against his bare chest. His shivering had grown worse. Kesvara could see it even through the grainy camera feed. His whole body shook with violent tremors, but his arms remained steady around the babies, protecting them, keeping them warm. How much longer? Veldar asked for the 10th time. His voice cracked with strain. The support beam is in the way, the rescue team leader answered without stopping his work. We have to cut around it. Another 20 minutes. Maybe 25. 20 minutes. Kesvara felt her legs weaken. She leaned against the wall for support. They had already been waiting for 50 minutes. 50 minutes of watching that human freeze while her baby slept peacefully on his chest. I do not understand, Mirka said softly. She was the youngest of the parents, her own hatchling Voss only 3 months old. Why does he do this? He does not know our children. He does not know us. Elder Kreshera settled herself on a bench someone had brought. Her old bones did not allow standing for long periods. It is what I tried to explain before, she said. Humans are different. They bond across species lines. It is not logical. It is instinct. But our young are nothing like human young, Sornax argued. He paced back and forth, unable to stand still. We have scales. They have skin. We hatch from eggs. They are born live. We are cold-blooded. They are warm. There is no similarity. How can instinct cross such a divide? Kreshera shook her head slowly. I do not have all the answers. But I have read their history files. On their home world, humans domesticated hundreds of different species. They took in creatures that were not their own and made them family. They cared for them, protected them, loved them. Some of these creatures were dangerous. Some were completely different from humans in every way. But still, humans bonded with them. That is animals, Veldar said. We are sentient beings. Perhaps that makes it stronger, Kreshera suggested. Perhaps knowing these are thinking, feeling children makes the human care more, not less. Kesvara watched the screen. One of the hatchlings, she thought it might be Strix but could not be certain from this angle, shifted in sleep. Immediately, Leo adjusted his hold. Even in his state, even shaking with cold, he responded to that small movement. Made sure the baby stayed warm and secure. We never leave our young alone, she said quietly. It is our most sacred rule. From the moment they hatch until they reach their 5th year, there is always an adult present. Always. We cannot imagine doing otherwise. It is the same for most species, Kreshera agreed. The Vrelnari keep their young in communal pods with constant supervision. The Thexians carry their larvae in body pouches until maturity. The idea of leaving vulnerable young with a stranger, with someone of another species entirely. She trailed off, the thought too alien to complete. But he is not one of us, Drenda said, speaking for the first time. His voice was rough with emotion. That human could have stayed in a corner, kept himself warm, called for help and waited for rescue. Nobody would have blamed him. The hatchlings are not his responsibility. Would we have done that? Kesvar asked. If the situation were reversed? If we were trapped with 5 human babies? The question hung in the air. The other Draknari looked uncomfortable. Human young are fragile, Veldar said slowly. They take years to mature. They cannot walk for months after birth. Cannot feed themselves. Cannot regulate their own temperature well. If human babies were trapped and cold, we would help them, Mirka finished. Of course we would. But we would do it because it is right. Because they are children. Not because of instinct. Is there a difference? Kreshera asked gently. On the screen, Leo's eyes closed for a moment. His head drooped forward. Then, with visible effort, he forced himself alert again, checking each hatchling, making certain they still breathed peacefully. He is fighting to stay conscious, the medical officer observed. She had been monitoring the visual feed with professional attention. Hypothermia affects the brain. Makes you sleepy. Confused. He knows if he falls asleep he might not wake up. He might stop holding them properly. They might get cold. So he stays awake, Kesvara whispered. Even though sleep would be easier. Even though it would hurt less. The medical officer nodded. Even though. Station Commander Ural arrived, moving quickly despite his bulk. He was Korthan, a species known for their calm rationality. But even Ural looked shaken. I came as soon as I heard. What is the status? The rescue team leader updated him. 20 more minutes. Maybe 15 if they were lucky. Ural moved to the screen and watched for a long moment. This human, he said finally. Leo Grant. I know him. Good worker. Reliable. Quiet. He keeps to himself mostly. Eats lunch alone. Does his job well and goes home. He paused. I would not have guessed he would do this. Why? Kesvar asked. Because this is not quiet or solitary, Ural said. This is heroic. Sacrificial. This is the act of someone who cares deeply. And I did not know he cared about anything except his work. Perhaps we do not know humans as well as we thought, Kreshera said. An alarm beeped on the medical officer's equipment. The temperature in that room has dropped to 2 degrees, she reported. That is below safe levels for humans. He should be unconscious by now. The fact that he is still aware is remarkable. Or stubborn, Sornax muttered. But there was respect in his voice, not criticism. The cutting continued. The rescue team worked with frantic precision. They knew every second mattered. Not just for the hatchlings now but for the human who was saving them. I keep thinking, Mirka said softly, what if it were reversed? What if one of us were trapped with human children? Would we strip off our warming clothes to help them? Would we endure cold, which is death to us, to keep them safe? Nobody answered. The question was too hard. Too personal. I want to believe I would, Velder said after a long pause. I want to think that seeing any child in danger would move me to act. But honestly, I do not know. We are taught to protect our own. It is instinct, yes, but instinct that focuses on our own species. Our own young. Humans are taught the same, I think, Ural said. But somewhere in their nature is something else. Something that says all young deserve protection. All children matter. Even if they have scales instead of skin. Even if they are not human. Kesvara felt tears gathering in her eyes. In Draknari culture, tears were rare. Their species had efficient water retention and crying was something only the very old or very young did. But watching Leo Grant sacrifice himself for Strix, for all 5 hatchlings, brought emotions she could not contain. We have been in the coalition for 200 years, she said. We have met dozens of species. We have seen many acts of kindness and cooperation. We have made friends and allies. But I have never seen anything like this. Never seen someone give everything for children that are not their own. It speaks to something in their species, Kreshera said thoughtfully. Something that might be humanity's greatest strength. Or perhaps their greatest weakness. This instinct to protect, to sacrifice even when logic says they should not. It is beautiful. And terrifying. On the screen, one of the hatchlings, little Cree, made a small sound in her sleep. A happy sound. A comfortable sound. Leo's cracked lips moved. He seemed to be talking to her, though there was no audio. Soothing words, perhaps. Gentle reassurances that everything would be all right. 10 minutes, the rescue team leader announced. We are almost through. 10 more minutes. Kesvara fixed her eyes on the screen. On the human who was saving her son. She made a silent promise. If Leo Grant survived this, if they got him out alive, she would spend the rest of her life making certain everyone in the coalition knew what he had done. This would not be forgotten. This single act of incredible compassion. The cutting continued. Sparks flew. Metal groaned and bent. And in the frozen room beyond, Leo Grant held 5 sleeping hatchlings against his chest and refused to let the cold take them. The final section of bulkhead fell away with a metallic crash that echoed through the corridor. Warm air from the hallway rushed into the frozen nursery, creating swirling clouds of condensation. The rescue team moved immediately, but the medical officer held up her hand. Wait, she said firmly. Look. Everyone froze. Through the opening they could see Leo Grant clearly now. Not through a camera feed but with their own eyes. The reality was somehow worse and better than the screen had shown. He sat slumped against the wall, his skin an alarming shade of blue-gray. Ice crystals had formed in his hair and on his eyebrows. His chest was bare, and they could see every rib as his body shook with violent, uncontrollable shivers. But his arms, those trembling arms, held 5 small bodies against his chest with careful steadiness. The hatchlings were wrapped in his uniform jacket, his shirt, and several emergency thermal blankets he must have found in a supply locker. They were piled on top of each other in a small mountain of bronze and green scales, their tails intertwined, their small wings tucked close. And they were sleeping. Actually sleeping, their little chests rising and falling in the slow rhythm of deep, peaceful rest. Kesvara took a step forward, her hand over her mouth. Strix was there, she could see his distinctive scar even from this distance. He was curled against Leo's left side, one tiny claw hand gripping the human's arm. His scales showed the healthy bronze color of proper warmth. He looked comfortable. Safe. Content. Impossible, Velder breathed. They trust him completely. Look at how they sleep. That is how they sleep with us, their parents. Relaxed. Secure. They feel no fear. It was true. Draknari hatchlings, when frightened, curled into tight defensive balls. Their scales darkened and their breathing quickened. But these 5 babies showed none of that. Little Cree had her head tucked under Leo's chin. Pax was sprawled across his stomach. Voss and Trill were nestled against his right side. They slept like they were home. Like they were exactly where they belonged. Grant, the medical officer called softly. Leo Grant, can you hear me? Leo's eyes opened slowly. They were unfocused, struggling to find the source of the voice. When he finally located the medical officer standing in the doorway, his lips curved into a weak smile. Hey, he managed, his voice barely a whisper. You guys made it. Good timing. We need to get you out of there, the medical officer said, moving forward carefully. Your core temperature is dangerously low. You are in serious medical trouble. Leo's gaze dropped to the sleeping hatchlings on his chest. They okay? They warm enough? They are perfect, Kesvara said, stepping into the room. Her voice shook with emotion. You saved them. All of them. Oh good. Leo's smile widened just slightly. Wasn't sure if I was doing it right. Never been a heating pad for baby dragons before. He paused, then added, they are really cute though. Even when they drool. And they drool a lot. Despite everything, despite the terror and the fear and the desperate waiting, several of the Draknari parents laughed. It was a shocked, almost hysterical sound, but it was laughter. This human, freezing to death, was making jokes about their babies drooling on him. The medical officer knelt beside Leo, scanning him with her equipment. Her expression grew more concerned with each reading. Leo, we need to move you now. Your body temperature is at dangerous levels. Much lower and we risk permanent damage. Can't, Leo said simply. His arms tightened fractionally around the hatchlings. They are sleeping. If I move too fast I will wake them up. Scared kids don't sleep this good. Means they feel safe. Don't want to mess that up. Leo, the medical officer said more firmly. You could die. Not going to die, Leo replied, though his shivering seemed to contradict him. Just cold. Really cold. But these little guys needed me more. Still need me, I think. Till you can take them without scaring them. Kesvara moved closer, tears now flowing freely down her face. Human Leo, she said softly. I am Kesvara. The one with the scar on his wing, that is my son. Sarge, you spoke to me earlier. Do you remember? Leo's unfocused eyes found her. Yeah. You said he might be scared of me. But he wasn't. None of them were. When I opened my jacket and sat down, they all just climbed on. Like they knew I was trying to help. His words came slower now, separated by shivers. Smart kids. Really smart. They are alive because of you, Velder said, his voice thick with emotion. Our children breathe because you sacrificed yourself. Not a sacrifice, Leo mumbled. His eyes were starting to close again. Just what anyone would do. They are babies. You protect babies. Doesn't matter what they look like. Doesn't matter if they are yours. You just do it. The medical officer looked at the rescue team leader. We have a problem. The hatchlings are bonded to him right now. We cannot just pull them away. It could traumatize them. But we cannot leave him like this much longer either. Elder Kreshera stepped into the room, moving with careful slowness. She approached Leo and the sleeping hatchlings, studying them with ancient eyes. The young ones are in a deep warming sleep, she said. Their bodies are recovering from the cold. This is good sleep, healing sleep. But you are right, they are bonded to their heat source. To him. Separating them forcefully would be cruel. So what do we do? The medical officer asked. We move them all together, Kreshera said. Human and hatchlings as one unit. We have mobile warming platforms and medical. We transfer everyone onto one, maintain the contact, and treat the human while he still holds the children. That is unusual, the medical officer said. This entire situation is unusual, Kreshera replied. But it is the only way that serves both the human's health and the hatchling's emotional well-being. The rescue team quickly brought in a mobile platform, essentially a stretcher with built-in warming elements. They positioned it beside Leo with extreme care. The medical officer knelt next to him. Leo, we're going to move you. Try not to tense up, all right? Keep holding the babies just like you are. We will do all the work. Okay, Leo whispered. His eyes were closed now, but his arms remained steady around the hatchlings. Don't drop the kids. We won't, Kesvara promised. We swear it. The team worked with incredible gentleness. 4 of them lifted Leo and the bundle of hatchlings together, moving them as a single unit onto the warming platform. Leo groaned softly at the movement, but the hatchlings barely stirred. Strix made a small questioning chirp in his sleep, and immediately Leo's hand moved to pat his small head. Sockeye buddy, Leo slurred. Still here. Still got you. Strix settled immediately, nuzzling closer to Leo's chest. The other hatchlings shifted slightly, rearranging themselves in the new position, but none of them woke. They trusted him. Even in sleep, even moved to a new place, they knew they were safe with this human. The team activated the warming platform and began moving it toward medical. The Draknari parents walked alongside, unable to take their eyes off the sight. Their babies, piled on a human's bare chest, sleeping peacefully while the human who saved them fought to stay conscious. As they moved through the corridors, station personnel stopped and stared. Word had spread about the emergency. Everyone wanted to see. And what they saw was something none of them would ever forget. A human, blue with cold and shaking violently, holding 5 alien children against his chest. Protecting them with his own body heat. Refusing to let go even though it was killing him. And 5 small hatchlings, sleeping on him like he was their parent, their scales showing healthy warmth and their small faces peaceful and content. In medical, they positioned the warming platform under heat lamps. Medical staff swarmed around Leo, attaching warming IVs to his arms, wrapping heated blankets around everyone, monitoring his vital signs. But they worked around the hatchlings, careful not to disturb them. Leo had suffered to keep them safe. The least they could do was honor that sacrifice by letting them sleep. Kesvara stood beside the platform, watching as color slowly returned to Leo's skin. The violent shivering began to ease as the warming treatment took effect. His breathing, which had been shallow and irregular, deepened and steadied. He was going to survive. They had reached him in time. On his chest, little Strix yawned in his sleep, showing tiny pointed teeth. His tail curled more tightly around Leo's arm. The human, now half asleep himself as the warmth made him drowsy, smiled faintly and adjusted his hold to make sure Strix stayed comfortable. What kind of being does this? Mirka whispered. What kind of creature looks at another species' children and loves them enough to die for them? Kesvara watched Leo's eyes finally close as he slipped into healing sleep, his arms still cradling 5 small lives against his chest. She thought about his words. Just what anyone would do. But it wasn't what anyone would do. It was what humans did. And in that moment, she understood that humanity had brought something precious to the galaxy. Something that could not be measured in technology or weapons or trade agreements. They had brought the radical, beautiful belief that all children deserved protection. All babies mattered. Even ones with scales and wings and tails. Even ones from species they barely knew. And that, Kesvara thought, might change everything. The medical bay hummed with quiet activity as Leo Grant lay on the warming platform, heat lamps positioned carefully above him and the 5 sleeping hatchlings still bundled on his chest. Medical staff moved around him with practiced efficiency, but their eyes kept returning to the unusual sight. A human covered in baby dragons. It was not something they trained for in medical school. Kesvara had not left his side. She stood close enough to see every breath her son took, every small movement of his wings as he dreamed. Strix looked so peaceful. So safe. Even now, even with rescue complete and danger past, she could not quite believe what she was seeing. The medical officer, a Quellan named Dr. Hess, monitored Leo's vital signs on her displays. His core temperature is rising, she reported. Slowly but steadily. He is out of immediate danger. The warming 4 is doing its job. When will he wake? Beldar asked. He stood on the other side of the platform, watching his daughter Kree sleep with her small head tucked under Leo's chin. Soon, Dr. Hess replied. The hypothermia made him extremely tired. His body needs rest to recover. But he should regain full consciousness within the hour. As if hearing his name, Leo stirred. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. He looked around the medical bay, clearly trying to remember where he was and why. Then his gaze dropped to his chest, to the pile of small-scaled bodies sleeping on him, and understanding returned to his eyes. Oh, he said softly. Right. Baby dragons. Still here. His voice was stronger now, less slurred than before. The warming treatment was working. How do you feel? Dr. Hess asked, moving to check his readings more closely. Like I fell asleep in a freezer, Leo admitted. Everything hurts. And I can't feel my toes. But I'm okay. He looked down at the hatchlings again. They're still warm, right? I didn't. I kept them warm enough. You kept them perfectly warm, Kesvara said, her voice breaking. You saved their lives, Leo Grant. All 5 of them. They would have died without you. Leo's brow furrowed slightly, as if he was trying to understand why this was remarkable. They were cold, he said simply. And little. Couldn't just leave them like that. Sornak stepped forward, his hands clasped together in the Draknari gesture of deep respect. You are a hero. You sacrificed your own safety, your own life, for children that are not your own. Not even your species. We have no words for this level of selflessness. I wouldn't call it heroic, Leo said, looking uncomfortable with the praise. Just seemed like the right thing to do. They're kids. You help kids. That's just basic, isn't it? The Draknari parents exchanged glances. Basic. This human thought protecting alien children at the cost of his own life was basic. Was simple. Was something anyone would do. For humans, perhaps, Elder Kreshera said from her seat nearby. But you are teaching us that human basic is extraordinary to the rest of us. On Leo's chest, one of the hatchlings began to stir. It was Pax, the smallest of the 5. His eyes opened slowly, blinking in the bright light of the medical bay. He looked around, clearly confused about where he was. Then his eyes focused on Leo's face, just inches away, and something amazing happened. Pax chirped. Not a distressed sound, but a happy one. A greeting. His small mouth opened in what could only be described as a smile, showing tiny pointed teeth. He tried to climb higher on Leo's chest, his small claws gripping the thermal blanket. Hey there, little guy, Leo said gently, adjusting his arm to help Pax find a better position. You're okay. Just waking up from a nap. Pax chirped again, louder this time, and the sound woke the others. One by one, the hatchlings opened their eyes. Kree. Boss. Tro. And finally, Strix. Each one had the same reaction. Confusion, then recognition, then joy. They all tried to climb closer to Leo, chirping and squeaking, their small tails wagging with happiness. Okay, Leo laughed, though the sound was still weak. I see you guys. I'm happy to see you too. But you're kind of heavy when you all pile on my head. Indeed, all 5 hatchlings were now trying to get as close to Leo's face as possible. Strix had managed to climb onto his shoulder. Kree was pressed against his neck. The others were arranged around his chest, all of them chirping and making small happy sounds. They acted like Leo was their favorite person in the entire universe. Kesvara felt her hearts breaking with emotion. They remember, she whispered. They know he saved them. Look how they love him. It is more than that, Dr. Hess said, watching with professional interest. Draknari hatchlings bond with whoever keeps them warm and safe in moments of extreme stress. It is an evolutionary survival mechanism. Right now, to these babies, Leo Grant is family. He is safety. He is home. Leo seemed overwhelmed by the attention. 5 small dragons were now trying to nuzzle him, chirp at him, and climb on him all at once. Guys? You're very cute, but you're also very wiggly. And I'm still kind of weak here. Perhaps, Kesvara said softly, stepping closer, it is time for them to come to us. Their parents. She reached out slowly, calling to Strix in their native language. A gentle clicking sound that meant, come here, little one. Strix turned to look at her. His small eyes went wide with recognition. Mama. But then he looked back at Leo, clearly torn. Leo saw the conflict and smiled gently. Go on, he encouraged. That's your mama, buddy. She was so worried about you. She'll take good care of you. Strix chirped uncertainly, looking between his mother and the human who had saved him. Kesvara understood. Her son did not want to leave his protector. It is all right, she said to Leo. He can stay with you a moment longer. But Leo shook his head. He needs his family. They all do. He carefully picked up Strix, who squeaked in protest, and held him out to Kesvara. Here, take your boy. I promise he missed you. Kesvara took Strix into her arms, feeling his familiar weight, his warmth. Strix looked up at her, then back at Leo, then seemed to make a decision. He reached out one small claw hand and placed it on Leo's cheek. A gentle touch. A goodbye. Thank you. Leo's eyes grew suspiciously bright. Yeah, he said, his voice rough. I'll miss you too, little guy. One by one, the other parents came forward. Veldar took Kree, who chirped sadly as she left Leo's chest. Sornax gathered Pax, who tried to squirm back to the human. Mirka collected Voss, and Drentois lifted Trill. Each hatchling looked back at Leo as they were carried away, their small voices calling to him. It's okay, Leo called to them, though his voice shook. You're safe now. Your parents have you. You're going home. But the hatchlings did not want to go home. They wanted to stay with their human. Kree began to cry, actual tears running down her small face. The sound broke Veldar's heart. They do not understand, Veldar said helplessly. They think we are taking them away from him. They think he is leaving them. Leo struggled to sit up, ignoring Dr. Hess's protests. Hey, no crying, he said to the hatchlings, his voice firm but gentle. Look at me. All of you look. 5 small faces turned to him, tears in their eyes. I'm not leaving, Leo promised. I'm right here. I'm just tired and need to rest. But you know what? I bet your moms and dads will bring you back to visit. And when they do, we can play. Would you like that? The crying stopped. The hatchlings looked at their parents questioningly. Yes, Kesvara said immediately. Yes, we will bring them to visit. Every day if Leo Grant allows it. I allow it, Leo said, smiling. I definitely allow it. You guys are pretty good company. Even if you do drool. Strix giggled at that, a bubbling sound of pure joy. The other hatchlings copied him, their sadness forgotten. The promise of seeing Leo again was enough. As the parents carried their children out of medical, each one stopped to thank Leo. Some with words, some with the traditional Draknari gesture of respect, some simply with tears in their eyes. Leo accepted it all with grace, though he looked exhausted and overwhelmed. Finally they were gone and it was just Leo, Dr. Hess and a few medical staff. Leo lay back down on the warming platform with a heavy sigh. That, he said to no one in particular, was the weirdest day of my life. And I once had to repair a waste recycler while it was still running. Dr. Hess laughed. Rest now. You have earned it. Though I think you should prepare yourself. For what? For being very popular with 5 small dragons who now think you are the best thing in the universe. Leo smiled, his eyes already closing as exhaustion claimed him. Could be worse, he mumbled. Could be 6 dragons. As he drifted off to sleep, proper healing sleep this time, Kesvara returned to the doorway. She watched him for a long moment. This human who had saved her son. This stranger who had become family in the span of 1 frozen hour. She pulled out her communication device and began composing a message. It would go to every Draknari colony. Every settlement. Every ship. The story of Leo Grant needed to be told. Not just because it was remarkable but because it taught something important. That sometimes the strongest bonds are formed in the coldest moments. And that family is not about species or biology. It is about who keeps you warm when the world grows cold. 2 days had passed since the incident in the frozen nursery. Leo Grant's recovery room looked less like a medical facility and more like a Draknari cultural museum. Warming stones filled every available surface, their gentle heat creating a comfortable temperature that made Leo drowsy. Hand-woven thermal wraps hung from the walls, intricate patterns showing traditional Draknari craftsmanship. Small carved figures of dragons stood in a row on his bedside table, each one a token of gratitude from a different family. Leo sat propped up in his medical bed, still wrapped in heated blankets despite the warming stones. Dr. Hess had explained that his body needed time to fully recover from the severe hypothermia. He tired easily and his fingers still tingled with numbness, but he was alive. He was healing. The door chimed and Leo looked up to see Kesvara entering, carrying Strix in her arms. The small hatchling's eyes went wide the moment he spotted Leo, and he began squirming with such enthusiasm that Kesvara nearly dropped him. Someone is very excited to see you, Kesvara said, laughing as Strix squealed and reached his small arms toward Leo. Hey buddy. Leo grinned, holding out his own arms. Come here. Kesvara set Strix on the bed and the hatchling immediately scrambled up Leo's chest, chirping happily. He pressed his small face against Leo's neck and made a rumbling sound almost like a purr. His tiny tail wagged so hard his whole body wiggled. I think he missed you, Leo said, wrapping one arm carefully around Strix to keep him from falling off the bed in his excitement. Missed you? Kesvara settled into the chair beside the bed. Leo Grant, my son has talked about nothing else. Leo is now his favorite word. He says it constantly. Leo, Leo, Leo. He says it more than he says mama. Leo laughed, gently scratching the soft scales on Strix's head. The hatchling's eyes closed in contentment, and he settled against Leo's chest with a happy sigh. Well, we did spend some quality time together. Very cold quality time. About that, Kesvara said, her tone becoming more serious. I need to ask you something. And I hope you will answer honestly. Sure, Leo said, still focused on Strix, who was now playing with the edge of Leo's blanket. Why did you do it? Kesvara asked quietly. Why did you risk your life? You could have waited in a corner, kept yourself warm, and called for help. Nobody would have blamed you. Those children were not your responsibility. Not your species. Not your problem. So why? Leo looked up from Strix, his expression confused. What do you mean why? I mean exactly that. What made you decide to sacrifice yourself? Leo was quiet for a moment, clearly thinking about the question. Strix chirped and patted his hand, wanting more attention. Leo absently resumed petting the small hatchling while he considered his answer. They were cold and scared, he said finally, as if this explained everything. I could see them shaking in the corner, huddled together trying to stay warm. And they kept making these little sounds. Not crying exactly, but sad sounds, scared sounds. He paused. They're babies. Just babies. What else would I do? Kesvara leaned forward. You could have done nothing. You could have prioritized your own survival. But they would have died, Leo said, looking genuinely perplexed. I knew they would die if I didn't help. How could I just sit there and let that happen? They're kids. They're not human kids. Does that matter? Leo asked. The question was sincere, not rhetorical. He truly did not understand why their species would make a difference. I mean, yeah, they have scales and wings and they're reptiles or whatever. But look at this little guy. He gestured to Strix, who was now half asleep on his chest. He gets scared. He gets happy. He plays. He cuddles. He's a person, just a tiny one. When a tiny person is in danger, you help them. That's just how it works. Kesvara felt tears forming again. Most species do not think this way, Leo Grant. Most of us would help our own young, yes. Perhaps even the young of allied species if we knew them. But strangers? Aliens? Most would hesitate. Calculate risk. Consider cost. That sounds horrible, Leo said honestly. I can't imagine seeing a scared kid and stopping to calculate anything. You just act. You just help. Is this human nature? Kesvara asked. Is this how all humans think? Leo considered this. I don't know about all humans. People are people, you know? We're all different. But, yeah, I think most humans would have done the same thing. We're kind of weird about kids. Any kids. There are stories back on Earth about people running into burning buildings to save dogs or cats. Risking everything for animals that aren't even sentient. So yeah, for actual thinking, feeling children. He shook his head. No human I know would have left them to freeze. The door chimed again. This time Veldar entered with Kree, followed by Sornax carrying packs. Behind them came Mirka with Voss and Drendos with Trill. All 5 hatchlings were coming to visit. The moment the hatchlings saw Leo, chaos erupted. They all began squealing and squirming, desperate to reach him. Their parents set them on the bed and the 5 small dragons immediately swarmed Leo, climbing over each other to get close. Strix, already in position on Leo's chest, chirped indignantly at the invasion but made room for his friends. Okay, everybody settle down, Leo laughed, trying to arrange 5 excited hatchlings into a manageable pile. There's enough room. Kree, don't bite Pax's tail. Voss, your wing is in Trill's face. Strix, buddy, you're choking me a little bit here. The parents watched in amazement as Leo somehow organized the chaos. Within moments, all 5 hatchlings were settled on and around him, contentedly chirping and playing with his blankets and making happy sounds. It was the same scene from the frozen nursery, but warm and safe and joyful now. They do this every day, Veldar said quietly. We try to put them to bed at night and they cry. They refuse to sleep. We tried everything. Finally, Kesvara suggested we bring them here. We carried them to your room, let them see you sleeping safely, and only then would they settle down. You bring them here every night? Leo asked, surprised. Every night, Sornax confirmed. Dr. Hess has been very understanding. We stand in the doorway, let them see you, and they calm immediately. Then we can take them home to sleep. They bonded to you, Mirka explained. In that frozen room you became their safety. Their home. They need to know you still exist. That you did not abandon them. Leo looked down at the pile of small dragons on his chest. I would never abandon them. How could I? Look at these faces. Pax was staring up at him with huge adoring eyes. That's not fair, Pax. You can't look at me like that. It's too cute. Pax chirped happily and tried to climb onto Leo's head. We have been sharing your story, Kesvara said. Your answer to my question. What you said about just helping because they are children. It has spread through coalition space faster than anything I have seen. What? Why? Leo looked genuinely embarrassed. Because it matters, Drendos said. Because it shows something about humanity that we did not fully understand. You do not just tolerate other species. You embrace them. You protect their young as if they were your own. This is not common in the galaxy, Leo Grant. This is special. It shouldn't be special, Leo muttered. It should be normal. Perhaps, Elder Crashera said, entering the room with her slow gait. But we live in the reality we have, not the one we wish for. And in this reality what you did is extraordinary. She settled herself in a chair and watched as the 5 hatchlings played on Leo. Strix had found Leo's hand and was trying to make him play patty cake. The other 4 were investigating the various medical equipment, chirping with curiosity. "There is something else you should know," Kreshera continued. "The Coalition Council wants to meet you. They wish to present you with honors. Recognition for heroism." Leo's face went pale. "Do I have to make a speech?" "Probably," Kesvara said, trying not to smile. "Can I bring the kids?" Leo asked, gesturing to the hatchlings. "They make me less nervous." All the parents laughed, and the hatchlings, hearing the happy sounds, chirped along even though they did not understand why. "You can bring them," Veldar assured him. "Though I suspect they will steal the show." "Good," Leo said, relaxing. "Let them have it. They're cuter than me anyway." Strix chose that moment to fall asleep against Leo's chest, his small body going limp and his breathing evening out. One by one, the other hatchlings followed suit, creating a pile of sleeping baby dragons on top of a human who had saved their lives. The parents stood in quiet wonder, watching their children sleep peacefully with the human they loved. Kesvara pulled out her communication device and took a photo. This moment needed to be remembered. This proof that family could cross any boundary, that love could bridge any difference, that protection of the young was perhaps the most universal language of all. "They call you Uncle Leo now," she said softly. "In our language. Did you know?" "Uncle Leo," he repeated, smiling down at the sleeping hatchlings. "I like that. I always wanted to be an uncle." And in that warm room, surrounded by gifts and gratitude and 5 small dragons who had decided he was theirs, Leo Grant fell asleep too. Still healing, still tired, but happy in a way he had never quite been before. Because sometimes, being in the right place at the right time means becoming exactly who you were always meant to be. 6 months had changed everything. Leo Grant walked through the new Xenobiological Life Support Wing of Harmony's Gate Station, checking the environmental controls for the 3rd time that morning. The department had not existed before the incident. Now it occupied an entire section of the station, with specialized nurseries for 7 different species and a staff of 23 people. Leo ran it all. He still was not entirely sure how that had happened. "Chief Grant," one of his assistants called out. She was a Vrelnari named Tish Shah, excellent with environmental systems. "The humidity levels in Nursery 3 are optimized. The Quellan larvae are very happy." "Great," Leo said, making a note on his data pad. "And the temperature gradient in Nursery 5? Perfect for the Corthan hatchlings. They are currently having their morning meal." Leo nodded, satisfied. Every nursery was designed with input from the species it served. Every environmental control had multiple redundancies. Every emergency protocol accounted for the specific needs of the young inside. He had made certain of that. He would never let another group of children be trapped in freezing temperatures. Never again. The main nursery door opened and a familiar sound filled the hallway. Chirping. 5 distinct voices, now much louder and deeper than they had been 6 months ago. The Draknari hatchlings had grown significantly, though they were still considered very young by their species standards. "Uncle Leo," Strix called out in accented but clear standard language. The hatchling, now about the size of a large dog, bounded toward Leo with his wings partially extended for balance. The other 4 followed close behind, their scales gleaming with health. "Hey guys," Leo greeted them, kneeling down to be at their level. "What are you doing here? Isn't this your lesson time?" "Finished early," Kree said proudly. Her vocabulary had expanded dramatically. "Teacher said we could visit if we behaved." "And did you behave?" 5 small dragons looked at each other and giggled, which told Leo everything he needed to know. "We were mostly good," Pax admitted. "Voss only knocked over 1 shelf. It was an accident." Voss protested. "Aha," Leo said, trying not to laugh. "Well, I'm working right now so you can't stay long. But you can walk with me while I check the nurseries. Deal?" "Deal?" they chorused. The 5 hatchlings fell into step around Leo as he continued his rounds, chattering constantly. They told him about their lessons, their games, their plans for the afternoon. Leo listened to it all with the patience of someone who had become very accustomed to excited young voices. They had become minor celebrities across Coalition space. News feeds called them the Leo hatchlings. Their story was taught in schools as an example of cross-species cooperation. Everywhere they went, people recognized them, wanted to take their photos, asked them about that day in the frozen nursery. The hatchlings handled it with remarkable grace for children. But Leo knew, from many conversations with their parents, that the attention sometimes overwhelmed them, that they sometimes just wanted to be normal kids. That was why they came to visit him so often. With Uncle Leo they could just be themselves. "Uncle Leo," Trill said, tugging on his sleeve. Is it true more babies are coming today? It is, Leo confirmed. A Thraxian delegation is arriving this afternoon. They are bringing 3 larvae. We are going to be the first coalition station to host Thraxian young. Why us? Strix asked. Leo paused, then decided they were old enough for the truth. Because they asked for us specifically. They heard about what happened with you 5. They heard that humans care for all children, not just their own. They want their babies to have that care. Because of you, Kree said matter-of-factly. Because you saved us. Now everyone knows humans are good with babies. All babies, Voss added. Even strange ones. Hey, Leo said gently. No baby is strange. Just different. And different is good. The hatchlings nodded seriously, absorbing this wisdom like they absorbed everything Leo taught them. They reached the new nursery, the largest one, designed to accommodate multiple species at once. Inside, it was a controlled chaos of activity. 3 Quellan larvae played in a specialized pool. 2 Korthan hatchlings chased each other around padded climbing structures. A single Vrelnari youngling sat in a corner, reading a data pad with intense concentration. And supervising them all were 2 humans. Sarah Webb and Patrick Chin, both recruited specifically for their experience with children and their gentle temperaments. Both had volunteered immediately when Leo posted the positions. How's it going? Leo asked Sarah. Wonderful, she replied, keeping one eye on the Korthan hatchlings who were getting a bit too rough in their play. The Vrelnari youngling, Keswick, just learned to read yesterday. He has not stopped since. And the Quellan larvae? Happy as can be. Though they keep asking when you are coming to visit. Uncle Leo, one of the larvae called from the pool, having spotted him. Uncle Leo, watch me swim. Leo walked over and watched dutifully as the small creature demonstrated an impressive underwater flip. That was great. You have been practicing. The larva beamed with pride, and the other 2 immediately started showing off their own swimming skills, each one trying to be more impressive than the last. The 5 Draknari hatchlings watched this with knowing expressions. They had been through this phase themselves. The phase where every child on the station wanted Uncle Leo's attention and approval. They love you, Strix observed. Like we do. I love them too, Leo said simply. How could I not? The door chimed and Station Commander Ural entered, looking pleased. Ah, Leo. Perfect timing. The Thraxian delegation has arrived early. They wish to meet you before they bring their larvae to the nursery. Leo straightened his uniform and turned to the hatchlings. You 5 need to head back to your lessons. I have important work to do. Can we come back later? Pax asked. Of course. You always can. The hatchlings gave him quick hugs, careful of their now sharper claws, and scampered out. Leo watched them go with a fond smile, then followed Ural to the conference room. The Thraxian delegates were insectoid beings, tall and graceful with multifaceted eyes and delicate antennae. They rose when Leo entered, performing a gesture of respect that looked like a bow combined with a wing flutter. Chief Grant, the lead delegate said through a translator. We are honored to meet you. Your reputation precedes you. Thank you, Leo said, feeling awkward as always with formal praise. I understand you are bringing larvae to our station? 3 of them, the delegate confirmed. They are very young. Very precious to us. When we heard about your new facility, about what you did for the Draknari young, we knew this was where they needed to be. We will take excellent care of them, Leo promised. We know you will. The question we have is, will you personally supervise their care? We understand you are busy, but we would find great comfort in knowing the human who saved 5 alien children with his own body warmth is watching over our larvae. Leo blinked. Yes. Of course. All the children here are under my supervision. I check on them multiple times daily. I personally oversee their environmental needs, their feeding schedules, their safety protocols. Good, the delegate said, visibly relaxing. This is why we chose Harmony's Gate. Not for your technology, though it is impressive. Not for your security, though it is thorough. But for you, Chief Grant. For the human who taught the galaxy that protecting children transcends all other considerations. After the meeting, after the Thraxian larvae were settled in their new nursery section, after all the paperwork and protocols were complete, Leo found himself back in the main nursery. The day was ending. Most of the younglings had been picked up by their parents. But a few remained, including one very small Vrelnari child who was new to the station and clearly nervous about everything. The child sat alone in a corner, trembling slightly. Leo approached slowly and sat down nearby, not too close, giving the child space. Hi there, he said gently. I'm Leo. You must be the new arrival. What's your name? The child looked up with large, frightened eyes but did not speak. "It's okay," Leo said. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to. New places can be scary." "I get that." A small chirp came from the doorway. Srix stood there, having apparently snuck away from his parents again. He walked over and sat down next to Leo, looking at the frightened Vrelnari child with understanding. "Don't worry," Srix said in his high, clear voice. "Leo keeps everyone safe. He's very good at it. He saved me and my friends when we were cold and scared. Now we're not scared anymore." The Vrelnari child's eyes widened. "You are one of the famous hatchlings. The Leo hatchlings." "Yep," Srix said proudly. "And Leo is the best. He gives good hugs. Want to see?" Without waiting for an answer, Srix climbed into Leo's lap and hugged him. Leo wrapped his arms around the small dragon, and Srix made a contented rumbling sound. The Vrelnari child watched this, curiosity replacing some of the fear. He hugs everyone?" "Everyone who wants hugs," Leo confirmed. "No pressure though. Some people aren't hug people and that's okay too." But the Vrelnari child, seeing how comfortable and safe Srix looked, slowly moved closer. Then closer still. Finally, hesitantly, the child reached out a small hand toward Leo. Leo took the hand gently. "You're going to be just fine here. I promise. We take care of everyone no matter what they look like or where they come from. That's what we do." The child nodded, and though the fear did not completely disappear, it lessened. That was enough for now. Fear faded with time and consistency and care. Leo had learned that over the past 6 months. As he sat there, with a Draknari hatchling in his lap and a Vrelnari child holding his hand, Leo thought about how strange his life had become. 6 months ago he was just a maintenance chief who fixed broken equipment. Now he ran a department. Cared for dozens of children from multiple species. Had become a symbol of something larger than himself. He still was not sure he deserved the recognition. He had just done what needed doing. Kept some scared babies warm. But if that simple act had somehow changed how the galaxy viewed humanity, if it had created a place where all children could be safe and loved regardless of their species, then maybe it was worth all the attention and ceremony and speeches. The door opened and Kesvara appeared, looking for her son. She saw Srix in Leo's lap and smiled. "There you are, little escape artist." I turned my back for one moment. "Sorry, Mama," Srix said, not sounding sorry at all. But the new kid needed to know about Uncle Leo. Kesvara looked at the Vrelnari child, still holding Leo's hand, and her expression softened. "I see. And does the new kid feel better now?" The Vrelnari child nodded shyly. "Good," Kesvara said. "That is what Uncle Leo does best. Makes everyone feel safe." She held out her hand to Srix. "Come now. It is late. Time for home." Srix gave Leo one more quick hug and scampered to his mother. At the doorway he turned back and waved. "See you tomorrow, Uncle Leo." "See you tomorrow, buddy." As they left, Leo helped the Vrelnari child stand. "Your parents should be here soon to pick you up. Want to wait by the window? We can watch the ships come in." The child nodded, and together they walked to the large viewport that showed the stars beyond. Ships moved through space, each one carrying beings from somewhere different, all coming together in this place of cooperation and peace. Leo thought about those words he had spoken 6 months ago, the ones that had somehow spread across the entire galaxy. They were cold and scared. They're babies. What else would I do? He still believed that. Still thought it was the most obvious thing in the world. But he was starting to understand that maybe obvious to humans was extraordinary to everyone else. And if that was true, if humanity's instinct to protect all children was truly special, then maybe humans had something important to contribute to the coalition after all. Not weapons. Not technology. But something simpler and infinitely more valuable. The belief that every child everywhere deserved to be safe. To be warm. To be loved. And sometimes, Leo thought as the Vrelnari child's parent arrived and the small one waved goodbye with a genuine smile, sometimes that belief could change everything.